first preseason game. Daniels gets off to a rough start, throws the interception. I'm sure you were not very happy about that. But I thought as the game wore on that you were really pushing the button to get him to throw the ball down the field and to be more aggressive. And I saw a Daniel Jones in the second quarter that I think Giant fans want to see more of now.
Yeah, Boom, I think that was the plan going into it. I wanted to do that a bunch this game. One, to allow him to get his timing back. I've never had an ACL. He has, obviously, and coming back from that, having not played, I wanted to make sure that he knew that, look, I wanted the protection around to be good. I wanted to develop the routes down the field and let him have to hang on to it if he needed to hang on to it, and then see the type of decisions he made. And I told him after he did that, like, he knew it wasn't a good play, the backed up play. The other interception, like, those are going to happen. It's one-on-one outside.
And he went to the right guy.
That's exactly
just
right.
Threw it inside, that's all.
Yep. And so, look, keep pushing the ball down the field. Let's keep working with our timing. And we did that quite a bit. Almost half the throws were probably over 20 yards that game, and that was important to me, and I think important to him.
Hey, listen, I thought the throw to Jalen Hyatt, even though Jalen couldn't keep his feet in bounds, that was a great throw. It was a great catch by Jalen. Threw a nice ball down the sideline to Malik Nabers, also to Darius Slayton.
Yep.
I mean, I think you got to feel pretty good about what you're seeing from your wide receiver core.
Yeah, and they're young, so. But Malik's had a really good camp. I'd say Hyatt has improved, but Slayton's been steady. You know, he's been steady as he has been since I've been here. The good thing about, I'd say, DJ was, you know, we had that play where we were backed up and the decision that he made, and then as soon as he came back out, I called a very similar play. They played a similar coverage. He reset, got it to the backs really quickly. The play to Hyatt where we got kind of pushed to the sideline on Stingley, you know, he kind of threw it up and flat a little bit. And then the next play was back shoulder, kind of played the same way.
Yeah.
Different defender, but I think we learned from some of the stuff that we did. That was important to play.
You know, I like the aggressiveness. I mean, this is what's going on around the NFL.
Yeah.
This is what guys are doing. All the top quarterbacks are all throwing the ball down the field to the speed receivers, throwing it to the back shoulders. I haven't seen a lot of that from you guys. I mean, Daniel, your first year here, it was – I think it was a combination of his movement and his ability to run.
Sure.
He threw the ball well, but I didn't see him, or haven't seen him throw the ball the way that he threw the ball in the second quarter of this game. I know it's just a small sample size, but does that give you like hope and confidence that you now can continue to do that on a continuous basis?
Yeah, I think you need to. In this league, it's hard to have 15-play drives over and over and over. So, you know, whether it's catch and run, which I think we have some guys that are able to do that right now, but being able to push the ball downfield is going to be important. You know, combine it with the running game and mixing those two things together. That's something we've been focusing on since OTAs. So we've done it a bunch in OTAs. For him, it was 7-on-7, which, you know, I don't really think helps too much a quarterback that's coming back from an ACL. But we've done it a lot in training camp. So it's something we're going to have to do.
You know, being a former high school offensive lineman, Brian, I like to look at offensive line play.
Sure.
And I felt like I saw a couple clean pockets in there on Saturday.
Yeah.
I was really encouraged by what I saw from that offensive line.
If you have any highlights, send them my way. So
I will.
I
absolutely will. So your assessment so far, this rebuilt offensive line, if you will, with some other guys in there.
Yeah, the one thing with the offensive line, maybe a little different than other areas of the team, is now it's got some experience. You know, we're young at receiver. Motor came in as a running back, but we're young at running back. The tight ends are fairly young, minus Manhurts. But then the offensive line, you know, we have 4 veterans on the offensive line that know how to play the game, that communicate well. You know, Andrew Thomas, Runyon, you know, even Stinney that's been playing has some experience. And then Illuminor and GVR. So, you know, once John Michael came back, which was important, you know, he needs to continue to play. Those 4 guys are really a stable and factor in terms of their communication and doing things the right way, playing with a certain style that are important to us.
Talking to Brian Daboll, head coach of the New York Giants. What was your take on Hard Knocks offseason? And did you have any cringeworthy moments where you were sitting there going, oh, my God, I can't believe I just said that?
Well, I mean, they take such small snippets out of the day. I didn't have a camera in my office, thank God. Joe did. So, and then there was cameras all around in the draft room and some of the scouting departments. But you know, something that we did, and don't have to do it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I know that John Mara hates the stuff, as you guys are starting your summer camp here. So this kind of, I think, was made up just to kind of have something different that the Giants could participate in and celebrate their 100th season. I'm just wondering, and this is going to be a hard question maybe for you to answer because you can't speak to somebody's heart and what they think. If I were your starting quarterback and I was watching that and I saw my head coach talking about Jaden Daniels and Drake May and everything else, I would be upset.
Sure.
Do you think that in any way, shape, or form, or did you talk to Daniel about any of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'll respect the question. I'll keep
Right.
that private. I certainly spoke to him. I speak to Daniel every day. I'm with him, every day in meetings. We have a good relationship. So, look, I understand it's a human element to it, too. So there was open lines of communication, I'd say, throughout that process with Daniel and myself.
By the way, I've taken one of your tactics in talking to those young quarterbacks with my own children. I'm serious. So I'll like teach them something. I'll be like, for example, I'll say the capital of New York is Albany. And they'll be like, Albany. Then like 10 minutes later, I'll be like, what do you want for lunch? What's the capital of New York? And they go, Albany. And I'm like, see, Coach Daboll taught me something. Watching you with those quarterbacks there, I felt like that, like more than anything, you enjoy that part of the process. I mean, it was fun watching that. What is it like being you sitting down with those young guys?
Yeah, I love that whole process of the draft. Obviously, with the quarterbacks, there's a lot that goes into playing quarterback. It's probably the toughest position to play in all of sports, mentally, physically. So to get to meet young players that are coming out, and look, you never know what's going to happen down the road. So, we've done this a bunch in terms of evaluating quarterbacks, going through our process. And, it was good to meet those guys.
Do you think there was one of those guys more than the other that you spent a lot of time with that you think is better equipped to start their rookie season positively?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the question's hard to answer because I'm not around him right now. You go through as much time as you can with young players. But until you get them in your building with you every day, I'd say that's probably a better question for the guys that are around him.
Speaking of young players, how about Malik Nabers? I know you guys were speaking highly of him during this Hard Knocks program, and now you see him up close and personal. You see him every day. Most of us feel like he's the next coming of Odell Beckham Jr. I know it's a very lofty status to get to when he was a young player. Do you feel the same thing is in the horizon for him?
Yeah, what I like about him is he's a humble guy that is very talented. And look, he knows he hasn't played in a game, and he's been good at practice right now, but we got to go out there and we got to do it at games. So he's smart, boom. You would love him. You can line him up in a lot of different areas. He's one of those guys that, and you've been around him where you can go through the play, you can hear the details of it, and then he goes out on the field. It doesn't happen that way, but he just has a knack of doing what he needs to do. He's an instinctive player, and that's hard to coach. So he's had a good camp. I'm glad we have him.
Another new player you guys acquired in the offseason was Brian Burns from the Carolina Panthers. What does he bring to this team, and what have you seen on the practice field?
It's really been good competition. Him and AT have been going at it really since OTAs. I say he's explosive off the ball. He's a good pass rusher. He's got a variety of moves, and I think he's done a good job with Kayvon and helping Kayvon develop his game. I'd say the month here, but tremendous teammate, outstanding guy on the practice field. Really leads by example in that regard for all the young players.
When I watch you talk to Malik Nabers and others and say, how do you handle adversity? How do you handle the ball not going to you? He said, hell, I'm a guy who gets emotional, and I do that. It sounded like you had some self-awareness with some of the times that the camera would catch you and angrily doing something that people would blow out of proportion. Is that something that you tried to, for lack of a better term, fix this offseason and maybe hold some more emotions in? Because I don't, quite honestly, I don't want to see that. I want to see like the Brian Daboll full of piss and vinegar and screaming at people. I like that personally.
I think you always self-assess, but I grew up a certain way.
Yeah.
I was raised by two hard, old-school grandparents that, demanded your best. And when you didn't get your best, particularly from my grandmother, you're going to hear about it. So, look, you always self-assess, but, I love this game. I'm passionate about it. We work all week for one time each week, and, everything matters. So certainly you self-assess, and you try to be better than you were the year before that. But, I'm an emotional guy at times, and sometimes that'll show.
And that's okay, Brian.
That's okay, Brian.
Guy,
you
that's
can let
okay.
it out.
Yeah,
we appreciate it when you do let it out because it gives us something to talk about. New defensive coordinator Shane Bowen comes here from Tennessee. Very successful with Mike Vrabel. They've always had a top 10. I felt like a top 10 defense down there in Tennessee. We all knew Wink Martindale, coming from Baltimore, a little Rex Ryan-ish, a lot of blitzing, a lot of attacking. What do we expect from Shane Bowen?
Yeah, he's got a mix. You know, obviously I've had a relationship with Rabes for a long time, being back in New England, and got to meet Shane during this whole process. He rushes with 4, but he's also got a blitz package. I think they do a good job. They did a good job at Tennessee in a lot of areas, whether it be red zone or third down and the run game. So, he's putting his own stamp on. The defense has meshed well together, and we got to play good team football, Boom. We really do, because we got some good rushers, but you got to play the game a certain way to allow those guys to get going.
This isn't the first time that Daniel Jones has been playing essentially with. I always use the term a guillotine over his head, which is a little harsh, but we're in the radio business. So, he did this in your first year when there was no 50-year option picked up and all that, and he succeeded. Do you believe that him being in that situation a couple of years ago can help him in this situation here, or is it completely different?
No, I think everything can help you in this league. The more experience you have, the better, and how you use it goes a long way. He's done a really good job, and I think Boom has seen some of it, as the game went on. But he's done this out on the practice field. Again, I can't imagine coming back, having to play in the National Football League, playing quarterback in the first game, you're on the road, your knee, and you can say all you want, and he says all the right things. But deep down, there's probably like, heck, I'm coming out here, I get blasted here. I've worked my tail off for 8 months and got back quickly. So, I think he's in a good frame of mind. We'll keep on working here these next few weeks and, try to be as ready as we can in the first game.
What do you think of this new kickoff rule, the dynamic kickoff? I think it's going to be fun. I've seen some explosive plays already in the preseason, but I don't know if everybody really truly understands it yet.
Yeah, I think that's probably you're probably right on. And I think as these next few weeks and our special teams coordinators and the rest of the coaches are watching every kickoff from the entire preseason. So they're making their adjustments as we go. It'll be interesting to see when you have really, really good ones back there, if you're even still willing to do it, or you're just willing to give up the 5 yards.
Well, I was going to say, depending on who you're playing,
no
right?
question.
So if you're playing Patrick Mahomes, you don't want to be giving up the extra 5 yards.
Correct.
Maybe if you're playing Jaden Daniels, who's a rookie, and you're playing him in his second game of his career, maybe you're more apt to kick it through the end zone and give it to him on a 30.
Yeah, I think those will be all conversation pieces. And then you got the returners back there. Do you want to give it to a dynamic returner who can take it to the house real quick and say, all right, look, we'll just kick it deep and take the 5 yards and then play from there. So, and there's a lot of little things that are going on. A couple almost broke here that we've watched, and it'll be a work in progress, I think, throughout this first month.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I think it's it's enough. Look, there was no kickoffs being returned last year, so again, how it goes and the different changes that could potentially happen, I think those will be important as we go through for the first month.
I think we had 10 kickoffs in Super Bowl 58 and not one return.
Yeah.
And, that kind of stinks. You want to have some excitement, and I think they're trying to create more offense. And, if you can get better field position, especially with an offense that did not perform very well last year, why wouldn't you want it?
No question. Take as many yards as we can get.
Yeah. So you got Minnesota week 1. They've got Sam Darnold as the quarterback. They got Justin Jefferson there. It's a different defense than you faced in the playoff game where you shredded them, and I had to watch that and then come on the air the next day and get ridiculed by all the Giants fans. So in your prep for that team, what do you see week 1?
Yeah, look, you do some off-season studies, but we're still in training camp mode here. Again, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Brian Flores and the things he's done, and the defensive side of the football presents a lot of different unique challenges. You said it's a lot different than 2 years ago, and every year is going to be different. He's going to wrinkle it, and KO, I worked Kevin O'Connell out when he was at San Diego State. So
seems like a good guy, right?
Yeah, great dude.
Yeah.
So they got a good football team. Again, we're still focusing on us. But, we'll do everything we do to be ready.
Do you know what Tua said about Brian Flores? Did you happen to see that?
I did not.
He called him a terrible person.
He crushed him. He was asked a question about the difference between Mike McDaniel and Brian Flores. And he said that Brian Flores is not a great person. How would you feel like it every time you showed up at practice? You were negative.
Terrible person.
You were, you're not good enough. Somebody else should be here. And then Mike McDaniel came in. It was like the quarterback whisperer. And Tua likes Mike, and unfortunately for Brian, it doesn't come across great.
you don't normally see a starting quarterback in the NFL call his former coach a terrible person.
Yeah, well, I know both those guys well, and got respect for both those guys. And as my grandmother used to always tell me, keep my ears in my own dugout.
There you go. Very, very smart advice, I should say.
I like that. I got to take that now, too. He gives me a lot of stuff, this Brian Daboll.
He does. You get a lot of stuff from him. There's no question. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. How do you think Joe Shane came across in Hard Knocks? I personally thought like he was like a little bit of a star. He was the guy that like they followed around. He became like a TV star. Did he walk around?
Look, it was good the cameras were all in his room.
Yeah.
And,
he's getting a little too big for his britches now, though. Like he's walking around like I'm the star of a TV show.
It's another thing my grandmother used to say.
Too big for your britches.
Yeah.
See, nobody says that anymore. Too big for your britches.
Absolutely. No, look, he's got the hair. He's got the He's
I know
he
was all done up the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't look like a normal general manager that would be disheveled after watching all this film, talking to agents and complaining coaches and everything else. He was all buttoned up and everything. He looked great. It was interesting because he and John Mara had some very interesting conversations, and it does show you how involved the owner really actually is in a lot of these decisions.
Yeah, look, of all the places I've been around, I mean, that's the person that he runs the organization. But he does a good job of letting us do our job, but you're also communicating with your boss about decisions that you need to make or reasons why you did certain things. I mean, that's the boss of the organization. So between him and the Tisch family and the rest of the Mara family, look, there has to be communication for Joe, for myself, to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Brian, thanks for joining us. It's always
Gio.
great talking to you. Good luck this
Appreciate
year.
you guys.
Yeah, good luck, Brian.
Yeah.
Thanks,
good
guys.
luck, man.